Give it up for Minister Ravel Nelson.
Come on, give God a hand clap. He is worthy. We honor God, for this is the day that the Lord has made. Amen. And we will rejoice and be glad in it. How many are grateful to be alive? Oh, I thought I'd get a better response to that. I said, how many are grateful to be alive? With all that we see happening in our world and in the news, we are grateful that God has allowed us to see another day. Thank God for Pastor Robert White, my family, for this opportunity. Thank God for Freedom Church. As I said in the first service, Freedom Church has been awesome to me and my family and have welcomed us with open arms. And people don't have to be nice to you. Should have got an amen right there. People don't have to be. And when people are nice to you, you ought to appreciate it. Before I get into the word, I just want to do a little bit of this song. It says, this is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your very presence.
All right.
Living in me. Oh, this is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your very presence living in me, and I'm desperate for you. And I'm lost without you. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word that's spoken to me. And I'm desperate for you. Do I have any worshipers in the building? Said I'm lost without you. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I'm lost without you. I'm lost without you. Oh. said I'm desperate for you. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, and ooh, I'm lost without you. Oh, I give myself away. Oh God, I give myself away so you can use. I give myself away. Yeah, yeah. I give myself away so you can use me. I give myself away. Give myself away so you can use me, because my life is not my own. To you I belong. Hey, I give myself to you. Oh, my life is not my own. To you I belong. I give myself. Because I give myself away. Oh God, give myself away so you can use me. Can use me. Can use me. Transform me. Renew me. Transform me. Renew. So you can use me. 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 Because I give myself away. Oh God, give myself away so you can use me. Come on, give God praise. Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Starting at verse 1. It reads, keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God. Be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools. For they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore, let thy words be few. For a dream cometh through the multitude of business, and a fool's voice is known by multitude of words. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Better is it that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the work of thine hands? May the Lord have a blessing to the reading and hearing of his most holy and righteous word. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, don't make promises you can't keep. Look at somebody else and say, neighbor, don't make promises that you can't keep. My brothers and sisters, in the beginning of this new year, there are often resolutions, there are often promises that we make. Truth be told, we really have good intentions. Yeah. We really are pumped and enthused about a brand new year. And we say stuff like this: a brand new year means a brand new me. Come on. We make a promise, we make a vow that I'm going to be better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to act better. I'm going to talk better. I'm going to live better. And we make them vows, we make the promises. And yet, when we make the promise and we make the vow, God hears us. But there's somebody else who hears us as well. Come on. The enemy hears us as well. Yeah. So while we have the great intentions, we also have an adversary. Yeah. Who wants to make us out of a liar. Come on. We make the promises and we mean it. We're excited. Yeah. We're enthused. But just as enthused as we are, the enemy is just as enthused to prove us to be a liar. And I would venture to say that all of us in this room have made promises that we have not kept. All right. Just look at me. Don't look at anybody else. Look at me. Let me put myself on blast. I have made promises. Yeah. And I have not kept all the promises that I have made. Here's the shout early in the message. I have not made all the promises come to be good, but yet the God I serve is so good that he keeps me. Come on. Even though I don't always keep my word. Come on. And see, somebody should have got excited just about that. Yeah. Because we serve a God that even when we are unfaithful to him, he is always faithful to us. He stays the course with us. He's patient with us. And truth be told is that when promises are not kept, when as it relates to us and other people, we get upset. Come on. Don't let nobody tell me that they promise they're going to give me some money and then don't come through. Yeah. Don't let nobody tell me they're going to invite me over to their house and have me over for dinner, and they told me that 6 months ago and I'm still waiting. We have had promises where we have had people that tell us that I love you. I'll never leave you. I'll be there for you. I'll love you through your good, through your bad, and through your ugly. Come on. And then ugly comes and they leave. And when that happens, we are angry. We can become bitter. We can have mistrust issues and commitment issues because a promise was not kept to us. But let's look at it from God's perspective. That when we make promises to God, God is hurt.
Come on.
God sometimes gets angry, even though I know people want to say that he's just a loving God. Yes, he is, but he gets angry too.
Yeah.
He gets hurt too because we make vows to him, and yet we don't always fulfill our vow. And the truth of the matter is that promises are broken every day that can have serious consequences in the lives of people. You guys have heard this one. Promises are made to be broken. That might be true for the world. But for the church, that should not be our mindset.
Teach.
If we say we're going to do something, we got to fulfill our vow. Solomon, the writer of the book of Ecclesiastes, wisest man to ever live.
Yeah.
Solomon, richest man to ever live.
Yeah.
Solomon had all kind of wisdom, but yet Solomon did not always use what he had.
Come on, that's good.
Solomon could give advice to everybody else.
Yeah.
Solomon could figure out everybody else's problems.
Come on.
Solomon was a great counselor. But Solomon did not use wisdom when it came to his own life.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm by myself, but there's been times in my life where I have been able to dissect everybody else.
Come on.
I've been able to give the greatest advice to everybody else, but when it came to my own life, I had a hard time listening to my own advice about myself.
Come on.
Here's what Solomon does, 1 Kings chapter 3. Solomon marries Pharaoh's daughter, makes a treaty, marries Pharaoh's daughter. God appears to Solomon in a dream. Solomon does not ask God for riches.
Yeah.
Solomon does not ask God for long life. Solomon asks God for wisdom and understanding to judge the people of God. But you know what Solomon forgot to ask God for? He forgot to ask God for wisdom concerning himself.
Come on.
Just imagine if Solomon had to ask for wisdom before he married Pharaoh's daughter. What's the significance of that? Pharaoh's daughter was a person that worshiped false gods.
Teach.
Idol gods. Solomon brings in a person that does not worship his God into his house.
Come on. Teach.
Y'all missed that. Solomon brings in the wisest man to ever live, brings in a woman in his house that worships idol gods, worships on the high place, the hilltops where the Israelites were forbidden by God to worship on the high place.
Come on.
And Solomon brings that into his house. All right. After he does that, he asks for the wisdom. God gives him the wisdom. God tells him, because you didn't ask for riches and you didn't ask for no life, I'm going to give you wisdom and I'm going to give you riches. But then in chapter 9, he revisits Solomon.
Right.
And gives Solomon a friendly reminder. He says, Solomon, you know what you said in chapter 3? You wanted wisdom. Okay, here it is in chapter 9. I'll give you the wisdom, but I've got to remind you that I also told you that if you walk in my statutes, if you follow my word, if you follow my law, if you live righteous, then I will make sure that you will always have somebody on the throne that comes from your lineage. But here comes chapter 11. Solomon did not listen to God.
Come on.
Because the older Solomon got, and the more women Solomon had, I'm going to put it that way, he begins to allow them to pull him further and further away from God. It starts off with just one wife. Next thing you know, Solomon is starting to get more and more women. And the more women that he gets, these women are not worshipers of the Almighty God. And he loses the throne. God said, Solomon, I ain't going to take the throne away from you and embarrass you like this. I'll make sure that your son Rehoboam gets on the throne, but it's going to be ripped from him too, because he's not going to obey me just the way you didn't.
Right.
But Solomon, wisest person ever lived, but yet he did not fulfill his vow. So he writes in the latter part of his life, reflecting on what should have been, reflecting on what could have been. And he writes this and says, hey, listen, chapter 1, he says, I'm a preacher. I'm going to give y'all a message. Everything is vanity. All that I've accomplished is vanity. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, he says, I've had gardens, I've had musicians, I've had silver, I've had gold, I've had singers, I've had everything that you could imagine for my pleasure. But then when he gets to chapter 5, he says, and guess what? All that meant nothing.
Come on.
Because the only thing that I discovered, Solomon says, that really means anything is keeping my word.
Yeah.
That's why he says, verse 1, he says, listen, when you come before God, when you go to the house of God, keep thy foot, be prudent, be careful how you approach God. He says, keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. In other words, Solomon says, don't make a fool of yourself. Solomon says, don't be so quick to talk. Solomon says, learn how to listen. Let's be honest, a lot of times, sometimes we have trouble just listening. And it's a good thing, brothers and sisters, just to listen before we speak. He says, verse 2, he said, be not rash with thy mouth. Let not thy heart be too hasty to utter anything before God, for God is in heaven and thou upon earth. First point is, we've got to have the right mindset.
That's good.
Got to have the right mindset. Then, we are not to tell God, don't tell God what you think he wants to hear.
Yeah.
It says, don't be rash with thy mouth. Let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God, for God is in heaven. Reverence God. Respect him so much that you just don't tell him anything. You don't just approach him anyway, but you approach him with reverence and say, God, listen, now, what I'm saying I'm going to do, I'm not playing with this thing. I'm not just saying something to be saying something, because you know, sometimes we just say stuff to be saying stuff. But he says, be careful how you come to him. Don't be rash. He says, don't tell him what you want to hear. Then he says, third point is this: don't make an emotional promise. Don't get caught up in emotion and make a promise. Think it out. Think it through. In a relationship, what is the one thing that you should never tell somebody in a relationship that you don't mean? Somebody said, what? Yeah. Don't tell somebody in a relationship that you love them and you really don't mean it.
Come on.
Because when you put that word in there, then it takes it to a whole nother level. Because at first, we was just, we was kicking it.
Right.
We was dating, But when you say, I love you, it just takes it to a whole nother level. Now, with that word comes so many things.
Yeah.
Because if you love me, that means that now you're saying you're going to be committed to me. And how many people in the room are just dating God and not committed to God?
All right.
Because see, when you're committed to him, you don't play with him.
Yeah.
When you're committed to him, you don't just come at him any kind of way. When you're committed to him, if you tell him you're going to do it, you mean it, and you're going to follow through. Fourth point is this: make a spiritual decision. Because see, the emotional decision, you was all caught up. But the spiritual decision is, I've thought it out, I've thought it through, I've prayed, I've fasted before I made the vow.
Yeah.
Verse 3, this got me. It says, for a dream cometh through the multitude of business, and fool's voice is known by the multitude of words. Here's my translation. Just because you dreamed it does not mean you're supposed to do it. That's good. It was a good dream. You was doing something in the dream. But at the same time, just because you dreamed it, that doesn't mean that God told you to do it. How about this? Your dream could be for somebody else to do it. It might have just been for you to speak it, but it also could be for you to speak it and then for somebody else to carry it out. So just because you dreamed it don't mean you got to say it. Some stuff you can keep to yourself just for a little while. Pray about it. Ask God about it before you start to talk about it, because you can get yourself in trouble by saying something that you don't need to be saying. Here it is. when thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it. How many people know about the credit cards you get and the promotion that they tell you you don't have to pay interest for a certain amount of time? You can defer the payment. How many know about going to get a washer and dryer, stove, or something like that, and you ain't got to pay up front? Defer the payment. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to pay up. How many of y'all forgot about paying up and your credit got messed up? He says, don't defer to pay it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. God is impatient when it comes to foolishness. Wow. God said, I don't have time for fools. God said, I'm looking for mature believers. I'm looking for mature Christians. I'm looking for mature believers that have said, you know what? There have been times in my life in the past where I've played around. I haven't fulfilled my vows. I said stuff, didn't follow through, but I'm in a new season in my life where, God, I want you to be pleased with me. So whatever I say I'm going to do, I'm going to follow through with it. Yeah. I'm going to fulfill my vow. It says, better is it that thou shouldest not make it a vow than thou shouldest vow and not pay. In other words, don't allow your mouth to get ahead of your heart. Teach, man. Come on. Don't make a vow and then decide that, you know what, I didn't mean what I said. I was just talking. I was just saying something. God says, no. You're going to have to pay up. Because Old Testament scripture, making a vow was voluntary. Yeah. It was voluntary. But if you made the vow, then you had to pay up. Yep. Now just think if we was living in Old Testament times and not in New Testament. Oh my God. Just on myself, that some things that I did not fulfill. But somebody ought to thank God for grace. Yeah. Somebody ought to thank God for mercy. Yeah. Somebody ought to thank God that even when you failed and even when you didn't live up to it, God says, you know what? I love you. I'm patient with you. And I believe in you even if you don't believe in yourself. That was a word for somebody right there. God told me to tell you he believes in you even if you don't believe in yourself. Good word. I'm finishing. He says this, suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. He says, don't lie. Don't lie. He says, because if you lie, you're sinning. Yep. Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the works of thy hands? Angel in this text was the priest. The angel today is Pastor Robert White. And all of those in Freedom Church, that if we make a vow, we got to pay up. Whatever it is that you promise God that you want to do, that you're going to do, we got to pay up. He says, lest God be angry at thy voice and destroy the works of thy hands. What is it? What are some things that you promised God that you was going to do that you did not pay up for? And you're wondering why some stuff you want to happen in your life hasn't happened. Maybe we should think back on some stuff that we promised God and yet still have not fulfilled. And God says, if I can't trust you to fulfill some stuff you said before, how do you expect me to trust you that you're going to do it now?
Wow.
So maybe your hand has been on it, but his hand hadn't been on it.
Come on.
Maybe what you've been trying to do, your hand has been on it, but his hand has not been on it because he's saying, I still need to see if I can trust you.
Yeah.
God is so concerned about us fulfilling our vow. Deuteronomy chapter 23, he says, if you make a vow, don't delay. Fulfilling it, God will require of you, and you will be guilty of sin. If you abstain from making a vow, you will not be guilty. If a man makes a vow, he shall not break it. That's Numbers 30:2. 76:11 of Psalms. Make your vows to the Lord and perform them. Psalm 61:5 says, so I will sing praises to your name as I perform my vows day after day. The words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 5. You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. You don't swear to heaven because he's in heaven. Don't swear to earth because the earth is his footstool. James 5:12 says, let your yes be yes, and your no be no, that you should not fall under condemnation. Numbers 23:19 says, God is not a man that he should lie, neither is he the son of man that he should repent. Proverbs 12:22 says, lying lips are abomination to the Lord, but those that act faithfully are his delight. Look somebody say, neighbor, in 2019, don't make promises you know you can't keep. Don't write a check with your mouth that your heart can't cash.
Teach.
Let me say it again. Don't write a check with your mouth that you know that your heart cannot cash. If you say that you're going to be a better father, fulfill your vow. If you say you're going to be a better mother, fulfill your vow. If you say you're going to be a better brother, fulfill your vow. If you say you're going to be a giver, fulfill your vow. If you say that you're going to be a praiser, fulfill your vow. If you say that you're going to be a worshiper, fulfill your vow. If you say that you're going to be a disciple that goes and tells people about the love of Jesus Christ, fulfill your vow. If you say that you are going to fast more, pray more, study more, fulfill your vow. If you say that, God, I'm going to give you the best that I have. I'm not going to give you 50% one week and give you 100% the next week. I'm not going to give you 75% this week and then give you 90% the next week. I'm going to fulfill my vow. I'm going to give you all that I have. Yeah. Is there anybody in the building that say, in this year, I'm going to fulfill my vow? So why should I fulfill my vow? Well, over 2,000 years ago, on a hill called Calvary, Jesus fulfilled his vow. They hung him high. They stretched him wide. They pierced him in his side. They put crowns on his head. They took the hair out of his beard. They spat on him. They cursed him. They told him, you come down if you be the Son of God. But he stayed there just for you and I. He said he was going to die, but he said on the third day, I will get up with all power in my hand. Is there anybody in the building that can be grateful today? Is there anybody in the building that's thankful today? Is there anybody in the building that's going to give him the praise? Is there anybody in the building that's going to bless his name? Is there anybody in the building that can lift your hands? Is there anybody in the building that can open your mouth and say, God, I thank you that you fulfilled your vow? Yeah. God's not taking late payments this year.
Come on. Come on.
No late payments.
No late payments.
God said, if you're going to say it, then I'm going to make sure you do it.
Yeah.
I'll chase you down.
Yeah.
I'll let a whale swallow you up, Jonah.
Yeah.
And in the whale, you'll say, I'll fulfill my vow.
Preach, man. That's good.
God, he loved us so much. Sent his son, and his son fulfilled his vow. God says, now, if I fulfilled my vow and I kept my word, all I want to know, can I trust your word? Whatever you promise, God, hear me, in 2019, fulfill it. I'm finished. A vow. Normally, a sacrifice was made to help with a difficult situation.
Come on.
A votive vow was made. A sacrifice was made for a votive vow after the vow was completed.
Come on. I hear you.
Y'all missed it.
I hear you. Yeah.
A vow was made to help with a difficult situation. But a votive vow, that sacrifice was made after the vow was completed.
Come on.
How many votive vows are you going to complete this year? Where you say, God, I promised you this. And then you fulfill the promise. And then you give him praise.
Come on. Come on. Yeah.
Because now I fulfilled the vow. But guess what? I didn't fulfill the vow in my own strength.
Come on.
I fulfilled the vow because God gave me the strength to do it. It wasn't about me. It wasn't because I was so wise. It wasn't because I was so strong. It was because he's strong. It's because he's holy. It's because he's righteous. It's because he gave me all that I needed to fulfill the vow.
That's good.
And because he gave me the strength, and because he gave me the fortitude, now I open my mouth and give him praise.
Yes.
Can we just take 30 seconds, just open our mouth and give him praise? Hallelujah. We will fulfill our vow. We will. We will fulfill our vow, God. God bless you.
Come on and give God some praise in here. Come on and give God some praise. No. Give God a votive praise in here. Because he sacrificed for you, you ought to give him praise. Because he made a vow to get you out of a difficult situation. Your sin had you in a difficult place. Your sin had you messed up. Okay, let me see. Some of y'all can't relate to the votive vow. That's too deep for y'all. He talked about credit. I messed up my credit once. I made vows I didn't have no intentions. I used to take all my boys to Denny's with that card they gave me at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I filled it out. I used to take all my boys to Denny's. We was eating, and my card only had like $250. Stop judging me. So we got grand slams and everything. And then when that bill came in the mail, I paid the minimum a few times, and I was like, they can't make me pay it. I had no understanding of how credit worked. My credit was bad, dawg, because I made vows that I didn't keep. Watch, he says, don't let the flesh suffer from what your mouth said you would do. That's what Ecclesiastes says. So then what happened is later I go back and you need something in the future. Your credit is bad. So now you can't get what you need now because of what you messed up with it. And so what happened is they told me if it was paid, if it's paid off, it'll increase your credit. And I said, I don't have what it takes to pay it. So in my physical life, I had to repair my credit. In the spirit, I was in the same situation. I messed up my credit. I had told lies. I was into fornication and pornography. I was a glutton. I had pride issues. I was a person who was separated from God. I had messed up my credit. And the Lord said, in order to move forward, it's got to be a payment. And I looked at him the same way I looked at the bureau, and I said, but I can't afford it. He said, don't worry about it. I paid it for you. He said, and if you just receive what it is that I paid for you, you can have your credit restored. But this time, on the back end of what he's done for me, I'm worshiping him because he brought me out. I'm worshiping. So real quick, if there's somebody in the room right now, I believe there are several people in the room in two categories. First category is you need Jesus to repair your credit. There's coming a day where everybody's going to have to pay for the bill we've racked up. The Bible says the paycheck for sin is death. And that death comes in the form of eternal damnation in hell. We don't like to talk about it, but it's the truth. And the Lord said, watch this, I know you can't pay for what you've earned. I know you can't pay for the stuff you've racked up. I paid for it. The only thing I need you to do is receive the check so that you can cash it on your behalf. The money's there. You just need to deposit it into your account. You don't have to do anything. You just receive it. If you're here today and you need Jesus to come into your life to forgive you for the sins you've committed in your past, present, and future, oh yeah, this check don't just cover the old stuff. It covers the now stuff, and it covers the future stuff. If you need Jesus to cover that check, I'm going to give a call for you in just a moment. The second group of people, and I'm in this group, the people who are saying in 2019, I'm about to give myself to God so that he can do just what the preacher said. He can use me, and I'll fulfill the vow, not in my own strength, but in his strength. I'm going to fulfill the vow. I'm not going to make promises I can't keep. Some of you, that does not mean don't make promises. Don't take it, I'm just going to back out now. No. What you need to do is say, God, I surrender me on the altar in front of you, and you put in me what I need to please you. That's the second group. First group, you need your credit repaired. Second group, you need God to give you strength to fulfill the vow. Every head bowed and every eye closed. Every head bowed and every eye closed. Every head bowed and every eye closed. Every head bowed and every eye